So first of all, thank all of you very much for taking time out in your day to come down and join us. Yes, we have no budget. And I would say that by the conduct of my Democratic colleagues today, that they are shrouded in a cloud of financial shame. We have been led into a course that has been uncharted in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia, where both a Senate and a House budget have been defeated for political reasons without any public justification or explanation why there were votes against the budget. With that, I would introduce to you a gentleman that all of you know very well and who I think is the individual that knows the budgetary process better than any legislator in the Commonwealth of Virginia, perhaps on comparable grounds with Chairman Putney, the chairman of our Finance Committee, Walter Stosch.
Thank you, Tom. Well, just so you know where we are, today we had before us the Senate Finance Committee substitute for the House budgets. We call them House Bill 29 and 30. But we had superimposed all of the amendments that were passed in the Senate a week or so ago, or last Thursday, I guess it was, onto the House bills, and that's what we had before us. And as you notice, all the amendments which were offered in a block passed. There were no exceptions to that, none pulled out, no additional amendments offered. And just to remind you, our budget and our amendments put more money into education, supports the safety net in a way that's consistent with our goals of making sure that our most vulnerable citizens are taken care of, and it is structurally imbalanced. That is, we left no second-year holds. We did not rely upon any type of accounting creativity, but rather a good, solid budget. So obviously, we're all disappointed that our Democrat colleagues chose to vote against it, because now we have no budget to move forward on. So that's our position, that's our posture that we're in. Without a bill, we have nothing to negotiate. And without a bill, we cannot appoint conferees, and we cannot engage with the House of Delegates. So this is a sad day for the Commonwealth of Virginia when one of our principal roles, i.e. adopting a budget that supports education, higher education, health care, public safety, all of the core services of state government as well as local government, has now been sent down the drain with 20 no votes. So I'll turn it back over to our leader, Senator Norment.
Thank you, Walter. We're also very fortunate to have with us a gentleman that I think very early on and very appropriately articulated where he thought the Constitution allowed him and where the Constitution constrained him from voting on bills before the Senate, and that is the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Bill Bolling. Lieutenant Governor.
Thanks, Tom. I was thinking on the way down here today, this is like deja vu all over again. It was about a week ago that we stood here and expressed our disappointment and displeasure that our Democratic colleagues had refused to support the passage of a budget after, of course, working on the development of that budget, having a number of their budget amendments incorporated into that budget, in fact, voting for those amendments, and then turning around and voting against the budget. We called on them then to reconsider that course of action, which we felt was both inappropriate and non-productive. We had hoped they would, but unfortunately, as we saw again today, they have taken the same course of action. We're extremely disappointed that our Democratic colleagues have chosen to put politics over policy and politics over people. And in doing that, they are jeopardizing critical funding for a number of very important state programs that the people of Virginia rely on. Senator Stosch mentioned the fact that this budget includes significant additional funding for public education and higher education, for public safety, for health care. It includes significant changes that would benefit state employees, both in terms of pay raises and bonus programs. But I want to take just a minute to talk about what this budget could do to Virginia's efforts to get the economy moving again and create jobs. Because as you all know, that's an area where I've spent just about 100% of my time over the last couple of years. It's important to remember that by voting against this budget, our Democratic colleagues have not just voted against the Senate amendments to the budget, they voted against the entire budget. Let me use just economic development as an example. Over the past 2 years, this caucus, together with our Democratic colleagues, have taken a very aggressive approach to invest over $100 million in new funding in proven economic development and job creation programs. In this budget, we have another $40 million in new funding that was requested and approved for new economic development and job creation programs. By voting against this budget, our Democratic colleagues have not only voted against that additional investment in economic development and job creation, they have in fact voted to slam the door on the progress that we made over the last 2 years, because without a budget, all of these additional investments will be lost. And by their decision to put politics over policy, they could extremely hamper our ability to continue recruiting new business and industry and jobs to our state. Their actions are shameful. Their actions are indefensible. And I would call upon them again over the course of the days to come to change course and to do the responsible thing. To stop putting politics over policy, to stop putting politics over people, and to do the job that the people of Virginia sent them here to do. Let me just close with one other thought. During the course of this session, there have been some 2,500 or so bills and resolutions introduced. Every single one of those bills and resolutions pales in comparison to the adoption of the state budget. By far, the most important thing we will do during this session of the General Assembly is adopt a budget. And if we fail to do that, the responsibility will sit squarely on the shoulders of the 20 Democrats in the Virginia State Senate. And make no mistake about it, the people of Virginia will hold them accountable.
We'll take questions in just a moment. I probably started off very modestly by suggesting that the Democrats found themselves clouded with a cloud of fiscal shame. And as I was thinking on that, 14 letters of the 26 letters in the alphabet come to my mind, and those are the letters that spell obstructionist. If you think about this in the context of what has gone on, we have considered the budget bills on 4 separate occasions, 2 Senate bills and 2 House bills. And it's remarkable to me that the Senate Democrats have taken the approach of voting against those budgets on 4 separate occasions and not have offered not one single amendment to change that budget. You would think that having gone through the process on the Senate budgets and heard the responses that were coming from my Republican colleagues, that strategically they would at least pull out something and offer amendment to say we are trying to improve that budget. This is what we don't like about the budget, and this is how we would try to improve it. Not one budget amendment. And that is absolutely remarkable to me. And then to have the absolute audacity to vote for all of the amendments, saying we concur with the amendments in that budget, but we're going to reject the budget. I'm just not smart enough to figure out that strategy. I would say to you that what's further galling, absolutely galling, is that embedded in that Senate budget and in the substitute that we laid on today are millions and millions of dollars that they requested to put into the budget. And they are millions of dollars that go to education, which they say that they're concerned about, even though we put $165 million more than the governor did in public education. And I might just parenthetically add, they talk about the funding per pupil. If I remember correctly, the Democrats were in charge in 2008, 2009, and 2010 when the funding for public education was cut. They voted for it in 2010, 40-0. last year on the budget amendments, 40-0. They actively participated and had complicity in cutting the funding to public education because of the recession, and now they say, we have no complicity. I would further say to you that we have put money in there under the direction of Senator Hanger, who is the chairman of the Health and Human Resources Subcommittee. They say, hey, we're sensitive and concerned about the safety net to help poor Virginians. We put money in there to restore the funding on some of those safety nets, and yet they turn around and tell those same people that supposedly they're advocating and protecting for, we think so little of you that we're going to reject this budget, and not only we're going to reject it, we're not going to offer any other solutions. It is absolutely beyond me. And so I say to you with great embarrassment, you know, sometimes we as colleagues have to be embarrassed for our other colleagues because they don't get that they ought to be embarrassed for themselves. I am embarrassed for them. And the reason I'm embarrassed for them, if this is not Washingtonian behavior, I have never seen it. And they think that fun has been made of us on the late night talk shows. This is absolutely intolerable. And you know what nobody has talked about? Not one person has brought up the subject about Virginia still remains on the watch list by Wall Street to determine what's the status of our AAA bond rating. And you think that Wall Street is going to be impressed with the fact that we don't have a budget in Virginia?